What is up, guys? We are back. We are back. If you guys missed the stream we just did, it was how to maximize your Mcat score. I like that one. That was a good video. Get back on here, guys. I'll give you guys a second. All right. I'll be back. Brady Hobson asks, can I get into medical school with a record? I talked about that in a video. Go back to one of the live and Q&A streams. I think it's probably like a month ago. Check that video. We talked about having a record, and school record and criminal record. We talked about that. So what happened to the June 3rd live stream? This is Kellermeister. So the June 3rd live stream. Oh, that was 2 weeks ago? Last week? Somewhere? Yeah. So what I'm also doing, so people have emailed me and said they don't want to sit through, again, right? Lack of thoroughness. They don't want to sit through all the question and answers to get their questions answered. So what I'm doing is I'm actually taking down the question and answers after we do them. And then over time, eventually, as my schedule allows, I'm chopping them up. And then I'll repost them as smaller videos. That way people can have easier access to the questions they want. And they don't have to sit through the other questions they don't. So you guys asked for it. I'll do it. But yeah, that's what's up with that. Hi, Doc. I heard that if one tries to do a surgery refellowship, at certain places, the doctors limit the ability of the students to partake in surgeries, thus hindering their ability to learn. I don't exactly know what that question means, because a surgery fellowship, do you mean like after the surgery residency? I don't know exactly what that is. But if you are a student, you cannot participate in surgeries if you're not a medical student. If you're like an undergrad and you're going to do some shadowing or whatever, you can't participate in surgeries. It doesn't happen. So I don't think that's what you're talking about. So I'm not sure what that question means. Dan N. Does volunteering and shadowing at a medical school's hospital increase chances of acceptance compared to volunteering and shadowing at a non-affiliated school hospital? So Dan, that's actually a good question, right? So we're going to expand on this, right? So I talked about how on these videos, now these Q&As, we're going to spend a little bit more time going into depth to certain questions. So Dan's question is, if you volunteer or shadow at a hospital that's affiliated with the medical school you want to go to, does that boost your chances? And I will tell you unequivocally, it does not help your chances to get in there. Because a lot of you guys get hung up on these details that don't matter, and you overlook other details that do matter. And so, for example, let me explain what I mean by that. Where you volunteer, where you shadow, does not matter. That's an insignificant detail. A detail that does matter that you guys often overlook is what they call breadth and depth of experience. So people will email me and say, hey, I volunteered for 3 months, is that enough? Hey, I volunteered for 5 years, is that enough? Hey, I volunteered like 1,000 hours a day for 2 weeks, is that enough? And it's all relative, but what's more important, and this is exactly why the medical school application is written the way it is. They ask for experiences, and then they ask you to pick your 3 most meaningful experiences. So what they're looking for is that you've been in an experience, whether it's volunteering, shadowing, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter where you did it. What matters is what you gained from it, what you got out of it, and how you matured in that experience, right? And that's how you guys should be writing up these descriptions when you guys are going to do this, to evidence to them. That's what makes it stand out. So the details that matter is that when you go and volunteer, did you make an impact? Right? Do you have stories that show that you cared for patients and patients appreciated you being there? Do you have letters of recommendation from physicians who said you're a quality person who was genuinely there to help people? Or were you just there, right, to be a box checker and say you volunteered? So that is the detail that matters. I hope that makes sense. If that makes sense, like this video right now, because I want clarification on this. The detail that matters with volunteering and shadowing is not where you did it, not who you did it with. What matters is what you actually did and what you gained from the experience. Because if you actually were in an experience that was meaningful to you, that was something you were invested in, you'll be able to write it up effectively on the application, which is the difference, right? When you submit your application, I've been doing applications for people and helping them with not secondaries, with their descriptions and with their personal statements. And a big mistake people make is they copy paste their CV or their resume into the description boxes. I was a volunteer. I was responsible for cleaning up after patients, transporting patients, greeting patients. Thank you. And that's the end of it. And it's boring. It's terrible. What schools want to see is that it impacted you, that you impacted other people, and that you write about that. hey, I was a volunteer at this hospital. It was so amazing. There were so many doctors everywhere, and I got to interact with patients and be there in their vulnerable moments. And I could tell the patients wanted me there and they appreciated me there. And then I had this great letter of recommendation that you can also see this right here. Bam, right? And that makes that volunteering and that shadowing stand out, and that's how it helps you get into medical school. That's how you want to make yourself look special, look unique. That's how you do it. It's not by where you volunteer. They don't care. And the extension of that question, right, we're going to go into more detail, is not just volunteering and shadowing, it's everything you do. So I see people all the time who go and they'll do a Harvard or an NIH research project, right? And they'll be like, oh, this is going to be so amazing. I'm going to Harvard, I'm going to NIH, I'm going to do this project, it's going to make me stand out. And yes, it can make you stand out, but only if you impact the experience and the experience impacts you. If you're going to go out to Harvard, be away from your family, and be homesick the whole time, if you're going to be in a position where you're working with a professor who's not a great professor, who's not going to be supportive of you, who's not going to write you a letter of recommendation, who's not going to set you up to get a publication or a presentation, then is that experience really going to set you apart? Having a Harvard research opportunity with no publication, with no letter of recommendation, with nothing to show from it and nothing meaningful to talk about in your interview is not going to help you get into medical school. So you would have been better off being at home where you wouldn't have been homesick, to put a bad face forward where you weren't crying every day in lab, to be with a PI who knows you, who's going to be there to care for you, all those types of things. So people get tripped up in this all the time where they worry so much about the prestige of things they're doing when what they should be focused on is the passion, right, that they're putting in to whatever project that is, and really the impact that they're having and that the experience is having on them. So does that make sense? It goes across the board for all your experiences. Don't get hung up in names. I could have went to, whose name is here? I could have went to Harpreet School of Medicine and still gotten to the best residency in the country, right? I could have gone to a Caribbean medical school and still gotten in to the best residency. Why? Because I make sure that I'm always showing up 110%, being impactful and being impacted. So if I went to a Caribbean medical school that was taught in a shack on the beach, I would still be at the top residency. Why? Because I'm putting it out there and I'm going to go 100,000%. I'm going to be dominant in everything I do. No excuses. I'm in Caribbean, no excuse, I dominate. No matter what is going on, if you have that mentality of, hey, I'm volunteering at Joe's Clinic for the Blind, whatever it might be, right? Some no-name hospital, but I'm giving 1,000%. I'm always there on time. I'm there early. I'm staying late. I'm being dedicated to patients. I'm filling in where they need me, not where I want to be. Of course, you don't want to be with the patient who smells bad. You want to be the hot girl in room 306, right? She's hot. You don't want to be with stinky old man. You want to be a hot girl in 306. But they need you with the old man. So then you go and you help out with the old man. That's what standing out is. That's what getting into medical school and getting into great residencies, that's what it requires. Not all this BS about being in a prestigious place. Wherever you go, you can make anything happen, but you got to commit yourself and look for opportunities to be impactful and be impacted. I hope I beat that to death. Give me a like if I beat that to death and you guys get what I'm saying. So Hannah asks, would you ever come to Chicago to do a pre-med event? And then C. Charles asks if I'm coming to Houston. So I'm actually going to be in the Texas area near Austin in November. I can come to Houston. You got to set it up. Let me know. Email me. Hannah, if you want me in Chicago, just set me up. I come where I'm wanted. Where people want me to come, I come out and we do talks and we have a good time. Caitlin said, question for later. I'm taking the Mcat July 20th. Oh, thank you, Caitlin. This is the question I wanted to answer. Okay, so I'm taking the Mcat July 21st, and I feel like I'm rushing my application. I know that even for DOs, they open up apps in June, but I don't have the best GPA, a little above 3.0. So this is a great question. Some of you guys are in this boat, right, where you haven't submitted your application yet. It's like June, it's like early June something or other. I don't know. My days are all off. I'm working 24-hour shifts, so my days are all off. But whatever day of the month it is today, it's starting to get to that point where it's like that borderline, right? You're still waiting on your MCAT score, you're taking your MCAT later on. And it's so important, guys. Submitting your medical school application early is a major determinant of how many secondaries and interviews you're going to get. And if you submit late, you're putting yourself at risk to not get the interviews you should have gotten. This is amplified if you're a borderline candidate. So Caitlin asked about, right, is it okay to apply a little bit later? My GPA is kind of suspect. If your GPA is suspect, right, so let's take a step back. I like dating because dating works for everybody. If you're the high school quarterback on the team, right, you're dead sexy, get the long blonde locks, right, that come out of your helmet, right, all the girls are on your jock. Everybody wants to be with you. You can be a buffoon, you can be rude, you can be all those things, and girls will give you just a little bit more leeway because you're the captain of the football team. On the other end of the spectrum, right, if you're Pigpen from, right, Snoopy and Friends, right, if you're the kid who smells bad, you're in no extracurriculars, right, all these things, you got to be a little bit sharper with your game if you're going to get the ladies, right? That's what happens. And it's the same way with medical school applications. If you are a borderline candidate, you need everything to go right for you to give yourself the best chance at all the schools, right? If you got a 4.0 and a 90th percentile Mcat and you've published a billion times, got amazing letters of recommendation, you can afford to apply in August and still get great interviews because you're going to stand out immediately. But if you're borderline, if you're fringe, or if you're a subpar candidate, you need everything to go right to maximize your chances, because just the little things might be the difference in you getting that nudge to get to a great school, right? I went to Stanford Medical School, and I got into like a lot of schools. Everything was prepared. But at the same time, I felt like applying early really helped me. And I've had other students who have worked with me, hi Nina, who were in a situation where they applied late, they didn't get a lot of interviews. Then the next year, they literally did nothing different except for submitting early, and they got a ton of interviews. And so in my eyes, that really bears out that applying early matters. And I actually show a graph in a couple of my classes. I think it's in my Mcat course, and then also in the new course I'm developing about medical school application admissions, which I did a webinar for a couple weeks ago. But it talks, it's data from Johns Hopkins University, and it talks about when their candidates apply and took their Mcat and all kind of stuff, and how it affected their chances of getting in. And the people who got in were people who applied early. And so I think there's a very strong correlation, both in my personal experience and also in the data, that applying early really does amplify your chances of getting into medical school. So I would say, to your question, Caitlin, if you have a low GPA 3.0, 3.1, take a year, and in that year, you can make sure your Mcat is tight. You can take a couple classes and make sure you improve your GPA as best it can be. That might be a little bit of difference. Maybe you get over somebody's cutoff and you get in. So take the year, take your time, right? And then go, right? Take your time and then apply next year. I would say wait. If, on the other hand, if you guys are perfect candidates, you can go ahead and apply a little bit late and be okay, right? But it's not as shaky. But you need to make sure that you're putting yourself, right? Don't settle, right? Applying late, to me, is settling. That's why I would never do it, and that's why I don't advise people who work with me to do it, because it's just like saying, like, well, everything's not perfect, but I'll submit anyway. Why would you do that? Oh, there's some typos in my personal statement, but I'll just submit it anyway. Right? Why would you submit something that's easily fixable? Your GPA, I understand, is not perfect 3.0. You may not be able to improve that. But submitting on time is something that's easily improved to make yourself more perfect, so why would you not put yourself in position to do that, right? And I have plenty of videos about settling and why you shouldn't do that. You should watch these videos, but don't settle. And I feel like applying late is settling. All right. Excuse me. Okay, we'll do one more question. So Pamela asked how to prep for the Mcat as a freshman in college. So again, watch my #1 tip for acing the Mcat, and that'll tell you how to prepare for the Mcat as a freshman in college. Additionally, you can buy my Mcat course at my website, premedproductivity.com. Okay, it talks about how you can prepare for the Mcat as a freshman and actually breaks it down specifically how you can actually use that time. It has an action plan for doing that, for maximizing your Mcat score. Mtiaz, what up? Ma says, how would a 3.6 post-bac GPA counteract a low GPA? So I would say, Ma, watch my video on postbacks because I actually cover that in my postback video. So watch that. Dexite says, what's your best advice to incoming undergrad freshmen? What should I work on over the summer to be best prepared? Please don't tell me to rest. I know I should. Well, I actually wouldn't tell you to rest. And I actually, did I do a video on this? Let me see. I think actually, yes. So in 2 weeks, oh, actually, no, I pulled it down. So I'll talk about it real quick. So real briefly, for my young cats, okay? If you're a young person, if you're in high school, if you're a freshman, if you're a sophomore, all these things, if you're trying to get better, if you're trying to go to pre-med, right? Pre-med starts the day you make up your mind to be a pre-med. Pre-med starts the day you make up your mind to be a pre-med. So, if you know you want to go to medical school, why would you not be doing everything you can to put yourself in a position for medical school? I don't ever say take a summer off just to do nothing, just to rest in advance of something. You take time off if you're tired, of course, right? It's always good. I take days off all the time. But if you're about to transition into college, you want to hit the ground running. So therefore, right, you want to have the skills necessary to survive that first year. The number one thing that people are going to have problems with is studying. So get your study skills on point. Improve your studying, improve your time management, improve your ability to take care of yourself away from your mom. So if you want to improve your studying, take my studying course, The 5 Pillars of Studying Less and Getting Better Grades, on my website, premedproductivity.com. It will improve your stuff. Major asks, how much are the tickets for the UCLA event I'm doing later this week? This is a closed event, so this is through the UCLA School of Medicine. So I'm doing a couple lectures there for some of their medical school students and then also for some of their undergrads at UCLA. So it's actually a closed event sponsored by the university, so you cannot buy tickets to this event. I'm sorry, guys. I'm also going to be at Keck Graduate Institute tomorrow doing 3 hours with high school students. So, yeah, that's fun. But that's also a closed event, but that's happening tomorrow. Oh, yeah, Kellermeister was paying attention last week. Thank you. It was last week, I think it was. So Melissa said, what is this? I'm using your Excel study schedule model for Mcat studying, but I'm a non-traditional applicant and need to work 7 hours plus commute. Have you seen success with working full-time in Mcat studying? So this, Melissa, I think is the perfect example of my last video where we talked about how to maximize your Mcat score. So everyone on here right now, right? Listen to Melissa's question. She said, I work full-time, I commute. Is it possible to do well on the Mcat? I would say it's actually very, very hard. And so that's right. So why being non-traditional kind of sometimes is tough. If you're working full-time and you have a super long commute and you try to have the MCAT, that's hard. A full 8-hour day plus long commutes on both sides, plus you need 8 hours of sleep. What time is left to study? So I think Future Doctor said it right? Future Doctor from the Hood, I like that. Quit your job. You got to do something. You got to figure it out. You got to I think that's going to be really tough. I wouldn't do that. All right. So I said one more question. We'll do one more. Gosh, goodness. I said I was going to stop and now I'm going to keep going. So Wendy asks, does your financial situation affect getting into medical school? She heard that people ask about that. So this will be the last question of the night, guys. Does your financial situation affect if you get into medical school? It does not. I think whoever told you that is lying. They don't know what they're talking about. Who told you that they ask about that? Schools are actually prohibited from asking you about your financial situation in interviews. They're prohibited from asking how you're going to pay for medical school. They're prohibited to asking about what your parents make. They're prohibited from asking if you can afford to go there, any of that stuff. If you bring up financial aid with them and your difficulty in paying for university, that's your bringing that up and that's you putting that in their face, but they're not actually allowed to ask you about your own situation. So it's if you present it, they may discriminate against you for that, right? Because they have a limited amount of financial aid. They may not like poor people because maybe it might be a rich person. I don't know. So I wouldn't open yourself up to that. I wouldn't discuss financial situations with someone else. At the same time, if you're applying as a disadvantaged applicant, right, and one of the things you're talking about are, so in my case, when I applied to medical school, one of the things that I talked about was that I was a disadvantaged student, that I come from a poor family, and that as part of my medical mission, I want to be out there in the future as a physician helping other students like me who are disadvantaged get to medical school by leveling the playing field, by creating opportunities for students who didn't have parents who were doctors, who didn't have the financial resources to have a billion tutors, to pay for all these expensive Mcat classes, to pay for all these things, right? So I see you throwing up UCI, zot. So I said that in my interviews. Hey, listen, I'm poor, and I'm looking forward to becoming a doctor and helping other people be great who were poor. So you guys, that's the way you're presenting it, then you do that, right? So then you bring it up because then it is what it is. And if they want to discriminate against you for that, then they can. Because if they can't see that mission, then that's fine. You don't want to be there anyway. But plenty of schools will take you. So that is what we got for tonight. So thank you guys very much. We are out of here tonight. If you guys don't know, the website is premedproductivity.com. Please get over there. Check out a course. Get yourself better. Improve yourself. And as always, have an awesome week. Be productive. Do something positive. Help someone out this week. And for you guys who are in the application cycle currently right now, get your applications in. Get them completed. Make sure you have people review your applications so there's no typos. There's no easy fixes, right? We don't want to settle. We want to be our best. And for you guys who are on the fringe in your application, really take a second, right? And think, is it my year? Should I submit this application, or should I take a step back, take my time, and doing it right? Do it right, guys. Why? Like, I never understand, like, people who everyone retakes the Mcat. Well, yeah, a lot of people, don't say everyone, a lot of people do retake the Mcat. Why do they retake the Mcat? Because they didn't put their energy in and their focus in the first time and do the things required to do well the first time. And everyone understands that logic, right? Because if you can do well the second time on it, you could have done well the first time on it. You just didn't have the right knowledge or strategy or whatever it was to do well the first time. So don't put yourself in a position where you're going into something half prepared, partially prepared, and you're going to settle for less than your best. Be your best, right? That's what it's about. No excuses. Just dominate. I'm out of here, guys. Dr. Pinesett. Later.